It's Friday, the 15th of October 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
5 stories in 5 minutes. Here we go. Story number 1. I always thought the Reserve Bank didn't get too passionate about things, but yesterday it definitely gave its 2 cents worth about the climate change debate, urging action from both government and business.
It sure did. The central bank's Deputy Governor, Guy Debelle, who has spoken about this before, he provided a clarion call for the local market to transition to net zero emissions, otherwise risk doing long-term harm to the economy. He said the longer we leave it, the worse it'll get, the more drastic actions we'll need in the future. He said climate change was a first-order risk for the financial system. Of course, this comes as the federal government is trying to negotiate a pathway to zero carbon emissions, or at least reduced carbon emissions, to take to the United Nations Climate Change Conference next month. There are still big divisions between the Libs and the Nats on this issue. Now, yesterday, Fortescue's Andrew Forrest, who is pretty much the leading advocate of renewable energy in the country among the business community, called on the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, to attend the Glasgow summit. Back to Mr. Debelle, he was particularly pointed yesterday, and certainly his comments will put pressure on the government. Clearly, he understands the need to transition over time, but he also said international investors could avoid Australian shares and bonds because of the climate change risk, and he said reducing emissions could have dire consequences for the coal sector and everything else up and including housing loans available from banks. However, he did say we've always been a net exporter of energy, no reason why we can't be in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. On to story number 2, and the local economy lost 138,000 jobs last month. Now that means nearly 300,000 positions have gone since lockdowns in New South Wales and Victoria were implemented.
That's right, but thanks to a drop-off in the number of people looking for work, the unemployment rate only rose to 4.6% from 4.5%. The participation rate fell for the 3rd consecutive month, meaning the unemployment rate is masking what's really happening out there. Now, Victoria shed most jobs, 123,000. New South Wales lost 25,000 jobs. There was good news from many of the other states, particularly Queensland, where there were 31,000 new jobs. The Federal Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, said the figures were better than expected. Probably true. But since the East Coast lockdowns kicked in, 330,000 people have stopped looking for a job, 280,000 have lost a job. That's more than 600,000 people without work, and that's the real story.
All right, story number 3 this morning. I want to talk to you about copper. It seems to be a favoured commodity at the moment, and there was a big deal yesterday from South 32.
Yes, South 32, which was spun out of BHP about 6 years ago, agreed to pay $2.8 billion for a 45% stake in a mine in Chile near BHP's copper operations. Buying the Sierra Gorda mine is the biggest transaction in the group's history. This is the 3rd big copper deal by an Australian company in the past 4 weeks. Now, Sandfire Resources acquired a Spanish copper mine late last month, and earlier this week Newcrest Mining came out and gave the go-ahead to develop copper and gold mines in Canada, PNG in Australia. The South 32 mine is expected to produce about 180,000 tonnes per year of copper. That's the same as BHP's Olympic Dam mine in South Australia. People love copper. It conducts electricity better than most other metals. There's plenty of supply, and it is undoubtedly a commodity of the future as the world goes renewable.
All right, on to story number 4. And Sean, there's been some unloved stocks bouncing the past couple of days, led by A2 Milk. What's been happening?
Well, A2 Milk has not had a friend for a long time, but it added 4% yesterday after Wednesday's 13% rise. There's just a lot of enthusiasm about the return of the Daigou channel to market for A2. It's meant that for the first time in many months, A2 is not the worst performing stock of the top 200 over the past year. That honour now goes to AGL Energy. It's now trading at 20-year lows. Whitehaven Coal's another one who couldn't find a friend 12 months ago. It owed tens of millions of dollars, was asking its banks for help. It was selling coal, which had hit a 5-year low and was facing up to the COVID recession. Then coal supply tightened, in part due to China's ban on Aussie imports. Prices rebounded 500%. Yesterday, Whitehaven said it expects to be free of debt within 6 months. Remarkable. Some of the fund managers have also returned to favour. NetWealth and Hub24 yesterday announced big inflows of funds, and their share prices jumped 16% and 9% respectively.
That's an incredible story. Now, story number 5 this morning, Sean. I feel like we've spoken about Elon Musk a number of times already this week, but you have to include this one this morning. What's he done now?
Well, he just gives us so much material, Elon Musk, of SpaceX and Tesla fame. He's worth around 225 billion US dollars, but last year he said he was selling all of his residences, his properties, and that's pretty much what he's done. He's moved into a trailer van at SpaceX. Mind you, I'm sure it's a nice trailer van. Anyway, he's down to the rats and mice, and he's had to cut his asking price for a little Californian shack, which he was wanting to get 50 million US dollars for. Boys and their toys.
All right, that's it. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Michael.
It's Friday, the 15th of October, 2021. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't quite enough, you can find our longer podcast called Fear and Greed on your podcast platform. You can also find more info at fearandgreed.com.au, where you can also sign up for our free daily newsletter. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fear and Greed Business Headlines. Have a great day.